I'm so excited to talk to you guys about this incredible project. I mean, you're taking it's something that's really after my own heart, which is I sort of made fun of it in my film The Green Inferno, where it's people that want to preserve culture but ultimately preserve themselves. But you've been living and seeing, you've seen it firsthand, and now you're creating this incredible film and series that will show what's happening. I would love to know sort of the urgency of getting this done, how you guys came together, and what we're gonna. There's so much in a lifetime of work that you've done. What are you going to be focusing on, and what's the most kind of urgent issue at the moment? We can start with
You start
Jaqueline.
with the issue.
Okay, so hello everyone. Very happy to be here. Yeah, let me speak about the urgency, which is a word you used, which I think nails perfectly the time sensitivity of a project like this. So I am thankful and fortunate enough to be in front of a crowd that knows very well that we're living in multiple crises right now, the poly crisis it's called. But there is one silent crisis that we often don't talk about, which is what I call the value crisis. And it has everything to do with that, with how us humans are interacting with the world around us and how we think of the world around us. And that's something that, as much as we can fix everything else, we can fix climate change, we can fix political, social tensions, economic tensions. If we don't fix that umbrella crisis, then we're just bound to create new ones, but we just don't know what these are yet. There is a way to fix this, at least from my perspective. I am a science communicator, and for me that is to bring back trust and objectivity, because we have siloed ourselves in too many different ways of thinking, and we don't agree with what is true and with what is real anymore. So that's really what we are trying to do here with Dr. Lawrence Blair and with a film. Why a film? Because as much as science communicator is a very, very powerful tool, many of the people don't know what science communication even is, and even less people know what it actually is and why it's and what it does. And that is precisely doing what I just spoke about, trusting that a more objective world makes for a more resilient society. It doesn't land into culture. What lands into culture, just to wrap it up very quickly, it's entertainment, it's film. We think less, we read less, but we watch more. We entertain more ourselves. And so what we try to do here is through the life and the legacy of Dr. Lawrence Blair, is bringing up on this stage a story that will eventually make us think better and be better.
Amazing. And Dr. Blair, can you tell us what brought you and your brother Lauren to Indonesia originally? What were the preconceptions of it? Because your work was so groundbreaking, and obviously how has it changed and how is it going back? Because it seems like now you are the one, even more so than the people of Indonesia, that has the record of what was there before. And what's
Well, that is actually true. The Indonesians don't have much of a record of their last 50 years. And I am just one of a handful of what we call ethnographic photographers, cinematographers, who spread around the world in the 60s, 70s, and 80s to try and capture a record of the life and ways of people ideally not yet contacted either by missionary groups or by their own governments, to keep a record of what now is increasingly more valuable to us, because they are the millennia-old custodians of a really valuable truth that we conservationists desperately need to know about. And how did I get there? Goodness knows. How did any of us get here at all? But I mean, my parents emigrated from England to Mexico when I was a teenager. My brother was 11, I was 14. And that was mind-blowing enough to move from the grey English world of the 1950s, heavily taxed, miserable, brutal prep schools, to Mexico. Ancient civilizations, tropical animals, wonderful stories. So when we made it to Indonesia, which is another whole story, it was like Mexico multiplied by 100.
Right. You were sort of had the intermediary stage. And
Yes.
you were telling me about the kind of the warrior princess, the young woman that you're dealing with now. Tell us about sort of what she's doing and what you found is so incredible, and you're going to be filming her, but also now your footage has become a record for her. You got
Yes, it has, and this is one of the various heroes in Indonesia who we will never hear about unless they get revealed in a series like this or a film like this. And she is indeed a warrior for her own nation. The Dayaks is the name of the tribal peoples of all of Borneo, the oldest jungle on the face of the planet, 50 million years old, full of numerous species. I mean, Indonesia is really a metaphor. It's the last wild bit of the garden at the bottom of our planet, along with Amazonas, of course, both of which contain the last of the uncontacted tribal peoples. Survival International thinks there are about 20 uncontacted tribes in both the Amazon basin and in West Papua, which is Indonesian New Guinea, which is part of Indonesia. And that's the neck of the woods where you really need heroes, because they're just embarking Indonesia on their first industrial revolutions, which we embarked on 100 years ago, and they're treating their tribal peoples as badly as we treated ours then.
So they're just destroying. I mean, I know you told me about this one woman. It's when you think of the faceless destruction, it almost gets overwhelming. But when you personalize it with this woman you were talking about, tell me about what you said that she's seeing every single day.
Well, she goes out every day trying to mark out with GPS now what is their tribal territory, what is their traditional territory. And every morning she goes out and she finds there are markers on the trees, and following evening they've been cut down. Even though it's illegal to do that, money talks there, power talks. What is more important? And of course, this wonderful ancient forest is now getting laid out, gridded out, and abused by the oil plantations. So in a way, I have it right in my face there in Indonesia, what we've been talking about here for the last week, which is so fascinating.
And before I jump in with Glenn and Michela, explain, just so we know, because I'm always interested where you think, wow, the evil logging company, they're destroying these beautiful civilizations, and obviously all of us in this room, we all really care, and everybody here really has a voice to do something. But what are they cutting the trees for, and how is our purchasing habit in the United States affecting it in a way that people might not even realize?
Well, dramatically, with palm oil, which is rendering hundreds of square miles of primary forest a monoculture. And because it's the cheapest oil you can find, and because it's in every single product that we buy, virtually, though there are now apps to see how much of it is in what you buy in a local supermarket, the devastation, it is the greatest destroyer of species diversity anywhere, is this desire for inexpensive oil that goes into every product you can think of.
It's crazy. And even when I was doing my shark documentary, everyone's just like, yeah, it's the palm oil. It's the palm oil. For me, that is such a big thing that it's in all of our products. There's almost no awareness from people. There's no awareness. There's sort of activists aren't. It's such a big idea to focus on. We can focus on gas, we can focus on pollution, but I do feel for everyone in this room, the palm oil, I think, is something we should all really dig into and get vocal about. Before we do, Glenn, Michela, producers on this, talk about kind of your involvement in the series, coming to it, how you met Dr. Lawrence, and your, just what it's been like working with him so far.
I've been Dr. Lawrence Blair's greatest fan forever, since I was a child. I don't know how many of you guys watched Ring of Fire, but Ring of Fire was already at that time, and we're speaking about the early 80s, a disruptive documentary series that could change and changed for many of us the perception that we have of nature, of ourselves in relationship with nature. And so many, many years later, I had the opportunity to, 3 years ago, to watch a show that Lawrence Blair was doing in Bali. And I remember that sense of wonder that got me and catch me while watching The Ring of Fire when I was a child. And Lawrence is able to make everything looks so simple, our relationship with all the other creatures, the sense of respect and love and joy. And so suddenly I felt that we should do the Ring of Fire again. We should bring Lawrence back, and therefore us with him throughout the remotest islands of Indonesia to feel that sense of wonder again. And so to be able not only to constantly think, I want to save nature, but to be able to go back and feel and love it And if you love it, you want to protect it. Because Mother Nature is our mother. We don't need to save her. She saves us every day. So we should go back to that honest and genuine relationship. And said that, I emailed Dr. Lawrence Blair 3 years ago now, and I said, Dr. Blair, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a filmmaker, and I want to make a great show with you. Can I come to Bali? And he said, okay. And so the next day, Jaqueline, my partner in business and storyteller with me and Lawrence and Glenn of this show, went to Bali, and we started this beautiful journey back to the roots and back to a beautiful relationship in between the humankind and nature.
And Glenn, you're obviously a conservationist and producer. Talk about pairing up with them and Dr. Lawrence and your involvement.
Yeah, it's so important to me. I've been very blessed to be in the studio system for 20 years, to produce pictures, independent films before that. We met in Bordeaux, and we were with an organization called Producers Without Borders, which I really thought was an amazing idea, this concept of globality, of empowering each other to help each other. And, you know, I've predominantly overseen motion pictures and produced movies, but when Michela was explaining to me the importance of this story, and she just laid it out and pitched it, and I said, this is absolutely something that we have to help inspire and create and produce, because the power of Hollywood can do two things. Sometimes it can reinforce a stereotype that's not good, or it can inspire change and make people think and ponder and be thoughtful. And you know, there are so many underserved voices that aren't heard, and nature is probably the most underserved and not heard voice, because what Dr. Blair wants to do is save not just what we see, not just what we hear, but what we don't see and what we don't hear. And that's why, you know, going into the waters, searching for the aurora borealis of the sea, something that none of us will probably ever witness, and that's fine, because we want to appreciate what we don't witness, because this is all part of nature. Like you said, if you want clean air, you got to protect the sharks. Yeah. You know, it's almost a selfish thing to want to be involved in this, to help protect nature, preserve culture.
And I think, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, you need a full team to do this, because you're a person. I mean, what you've done has been groundbreaking for so long, and obviously your series meant so much to her. But today we live in a world, you know, where we all have such connectivity on our phone. Can you talk about, and I'd love to hear from you, Dr. Blair, just sort of what young people today who may never have the opportunity to go to Indonesia, who might watch their series or follow you on the phone. It feels to me like when a problem is too big, people go, either I can't tune out, or, oh, Dr. Blair's got it. I'm good. But when you give them that one small objective, like if you see squalene in your lipstick, ask if it's shark or plant. They go, I can do that. What are some things that are very, because I know a lot of people are going to see this and go, I don't want those trees cut down, but who's going to listen to me? What have you found is most effective for the average person who watches your show to help kind of make a change? And also, a lot of people really do want to contribute. They go, I might never go, but I want to give them money. What's a good way? What have you found for you personally to be the most effective ways for people to contribute, behavior-wise and money-wise?
Me?
You.
Dr. Lawrence Blair.
Well, it is, and I'm in a slightly different position. I'm a sort of an outsider. I used to live here in Los Angeles. As you know, in the late 80s, I used to commute between Indonesia and the deeps of Indonesia, between here and both places, Bali and Los Angeles, consider themselves to be the center of the universe, beyond which everything is just downhill. And it was fascinating going between the two, and completely different approaches. But it's much harder. You're far more enlightened here. You've been struggling for this enlightenment over the last few years, how to deal with this problem. Over there, as I say, they're just embarking on their first industrial revolution. They think they're doing well to chop down a pile of trees. They haven't really woken up to the fact that they do are the custodians of the great treasure of the whole planet in terms of species diversity. So there are two different worlds here, and I mean, maybe I'm digressing here a bit, but you know, my field is something called psychoanthropology, which is a branch of anthropology, and it deals with the range of the human mind, with belief, and how belief, what you believe in, actually affects your reality. You know, you can't see what you can't believe in. When we first went over there in the 70s, they didn't believe that we had walked on the moon, and we didn't really believe that they could walk on fire without getting burned. But we now, both of us, know that this is the case, and it has expanded our understanding of what is possible and what can be done. Where it needs to be expanded still is awareness in the Far East itself amongst these governments of Southeast Asia. Because you're all doing a great job here, you're all waking up, but it's the rest of the world is lagging behind, if I tell you the truth.
Interesting, yeah.
And I just want to add just a slight bit of information here as well, is what we're trying to do here is not to make people feel sorry for deforestation or to shock them, because there's plenty of content that is out there that does precisely this. We take it a step further. We want to go to the root of what the problem is, and that's the fact that we have lost, specifically so on this side of the world, we have lost the relationship with nature. And now we're alienated towards an ecosystem that we don't even feel that we pertain to the same world. So that's what we try to do, because if you fix that, you fix all of the rest.
And the amazing thing is he's got footage from the 1970s that he and his brother captured. And so we have an opportunity to say, this was, this is, and with working with the local women in Indonesia, this is what could be, and we hope to manifest something that's positive.
Beautiful, yes.
And this is fun and adventurous. We never say, I'm so sorry. And it's going to be fun and adventurous. We need to make... What Jaqueline started off saying is that through communication science, we're trying to bring back the sense of consciousness, our human consciousness in storytelling, okay? And this TV show and this film aim to bring people back to their consciousness so that they can open their eyes and see better what's around them. And we are not just following Dr. Lawrence Blair, we're following the man who inspired Indiana Jones. So who better than him can make us believe that we can get back the sense of wonder and the sense of magic and want to impact the world.
That's what's so inspiring about you, and that I love is, I mean, you've been described as a romantic explorer and the last of the romantic explorers. We live in a world now where everything, certainly in the United States, is completely curated from the moment you get in the car to take this route to, even if it's a Coachella experience, oh, this is it, but these are these bands at this time. And when you go on vacation, you go to these places for these TikTok spots. But you're going out completely unstructured into the world, and there's something so incredible and beautiful about that. And I think that there is sort of a magic in not knowing where you're going and getting lost. Can you talk about that, of the beauty in just exploring what's out there and not knowing what's there?
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is no greater... This is why we talk about you have to go into the darkness to find the light. You have to be completely naked and open for the next stages to come. And when it looks as we are now in rather a dark period of human history, this is when the light is going to come through one way or the other. I mean, it's just a fact. If you follow the pattern of history, this is how it has always happened. And even in the mythology and the psychology of going deep into the darkness of yourself, that is where you find the light. And what the Indonesians have taught me is that they are really much more inwardly oriented than we are. And as a psychoanthropologist, one gives oneself permission to get one's nose stuck into everybody else's business, and particularly their metaphysical side. I mean, just an example of what I mean by this, we have infestations of ants every so often up in the hills of Bali. And there was a Balinese shaman, and his son is one of the people who will be in this film again as well. And if you have these infestations of ants, you call him in, and he will say, oh, well, these ants, they're not so bad, let them alone, they'll go in a day or two. Other ones, he says, these are bad, you've got to get rid of these. They think this is where they live. And he'll do perform a ritual, something that we in the West will say, oh, it's mumbo jumbo, woo, superstition. But lo and behold, on many occasions, both I and my neighbors have experienced him succeeding in banishing these ants. So that is just a sort of a superficial example of a whole dimension of understanding, of a whole reality in human evolution that we in the West don't know so much about. Rather, as the left cranial rational brain, which we excel in, we're good at building aeroplanes and making computers, they have been putting that energy into the right cranial hemisphere, which is indeed arguably the right cranial hemisphere of the globe as well, and they're equally good at it. And I like to think that these two sides will come together, and that is where we're going to find a whole new platform which will enable us to have a different approach to the environment.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, please, incredible. I definitely think that if there's anywhere likely to have an ant shaman pop up since this conference, it would be it's going to be Los Angeles. There'll be a few running around by this afternoon. But I love that. I think that's what's, everyone is going to be watching the series looking to expand their own mind and to think, oh, wow, this is someone who's, it's not, oh, ants are there. Like someone can truly understand why they're there and speak to them in a way. I would love to know, some of the cultural beliefs that you've seen from the tribes that either seemed crazy, but that actually made sense. Or what are some of the things that obviously and how they contrasted with Western civilization and how it affected you?
Do you know, really, I think this was explored fairly thoroughly in Ring of Fire, which admittedly came out in 1988, the difference and what they can do. But what I think this present production will take further is really the discoveries in the new sciences of the West, which are absolutely fascinating, which are rather difficult in this age of where, as you were saying, Jackie, we're not sure what is truth anymore and what is nonsense. And that there are these new sciences, for instance, quantum botany, quantum biology, how we're discovering that this quantum world of physics is probably responsible for human memory, for how animals know when they're going to mate, for migratory mysteries. There's a whole new dimension. I mean, if I may say so, we used to think that the world was flat because it looks like that every day. Then we thought that the world was the center of the universe because it looks like that. Then we thought that this was solid because it feels like that. We know we're wrong on all counts. We are arguably now at a state in history in our human consciousness where we're literally on the brink of a whole new way of understanding the relationship between consciousness and nature, between the inside and the outside. An example, unless I'm going on too long, an example from the Southeast, which we'll be including in our thing here, a thing called a tunicate, a parasome tunicate, which looks like a sort of a sock. They're quite rare. You find them underwater in shallow water near New Guinea. And they're made up of countless little identical individual little jelly cells. And you can beat them up and they turn into dust. And you sit back and you watch and they will reintegrate themselves again and carry on as a single organism. And they've recently found them in the Antarctic 27 feet long. And they've even had dead penguins inside them. And they can disintegrate and reaccumulate again. How do they know how to do this? There's a whole dimension of life and consciousness that, of course, hasn't been explored in our last amazing 50 years of objective documentary film about animals. Certainly, we've got much more close, much more intimate to the natural world than ever before. But this region, a new brink of discovery, has not been explored.
It's so interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. I'm very interested in consciousness and the concept that there's the cloud and we're all just tapping into consciousness. And when someone calls you and you're like, it's so weird, I was just thinking about you. We're dipping into each other's consciousness, or how your dog knows you're going away and gives you that look. And you're like, I haven't even brought the suitcases out. And they're like, you are fucking betraying me, motherfucker. I know it. I know. And you're like, no, but how do they know? So, but I believe that, like, everything with the plants, by the way, the plants, which we're all just, it's like we're ripping up the communication lines by destroying these trees. I would love to, literally that, I would love to know about that, kind of your scientific background, and it's so interesting, the intersection of science, what we know now, and how it's going to integrate the show. And I'm also curious if you guys have thought about, I'm sure you have a kind of a podcast component to keep following along with it. But I'd love to know the
Jackie,
science.
you
Jackie,
start.
the
Go
science.
with the science.
I mean, science of consciousness already is a bit of a trigger. I think that the psychoanthropologist is much better served to answer to this one, but it's true. And I think that what really speaks to, it's believing in what we can't see. So this is the whole concept that we also try to bring out with the film that we're trying to do here, because we have become so we only believe in what we see and we can't believe in what we don't. But at the same time, what you were speaking about is the tree of all of the trees of life. And there's something that lives inside the soil, for example. And now I nerd out on science. I don't know if this is right for this, but
Love it.
yeah, no, but the mycelium, for example. So these are fungi, and these are essentially what controls all of the airflows. And that, and Lawrence, allow me to say, that has a whole consciousness all of its own, for example. And much of the weather depends on them. And these are all of these network of fungi that grow all together and intersect one another underneath the trees. And they also give the nutrients to the trees that then, of course, I mean, this is 101 science, so we're not going there. But one thing that is happening with deforestation and that nobody really understands and talks about, because again, we scientifically don't know much about it, is that by deforestating, we're actually breaking up these network of myceliums. And we don't know what is gonna happen once we break those networks off. And that's pretty much what, I don't know, Lawrence, how have I done on this one?
Very well.
'Cause that was
Very
a hard
well.
one.
We think she did great. We can
I
applaud.
wasn't
Yes.
supposed to speak
No,
about
it's good.
consciousness.
But I love it. But it's also, it's what we're talking about. It's not just that we're now, we all know that there's deforestation, that civilizations are being contacted and displaced, but understanding it, that it's actually affecting quantum botany. I don't think it, like you said, I don't think anyone ever thought of that before. What were you going to say, Glenn? You were.
No, that for podcast and communication, I do think it's critical. We talked about that this week, in fact, and I think that the scientific community coming together in the motion picture industry. I mean, if you think about it, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, we need all of that to tell the story. We need 360 audio to try to bring people into the experience. We need the right lenses and filtration to see what our eyes can't see. So there's a lot of science going in behind the camera to empower the story and to magnify these stories.
And I think people are going to want to follow along after. It's just a great way to keep people. You're going to have a core group of people invested. You'll want to keep growing. There's the famous, I would love to just a little bit more for you to elaborate. You mentioned it briefly, coming from darkness into light and the metaphor of that. It's so important. And there are a lot of people that might not know or will now go watch your original series with Ring of Fire. But that statement, that thesis, if you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, yes, because we mentioned at the beginning the aurora borealis of the sea. There is a fish in Indonesia. It's only about 5-6 inches long, and it is the most bioluminescent creature known in science. It's its cheeks which glow powerfully enough to be able to read a newspaper by. The only trouble is it lives about 1,000 feet deep in the darkness, but once a year on a dark moon in remote reefs, it rises up from depth to mate near the surface, which was remarked by earlier travelers, the first sailors who went there, of this extraordinary phenomena of immense brightness. And certain reefs are still called Angel Reef in Indonesia. And I've been lucky enough to see this. I went there with some scientists who were collecting these things for Scripps Institute. They brought back a few of them. It's very sophisticated. They thought they could produce cold light very inexpensively and very brightly, but it's much more complicated than that. They can't quite yet. But anyway, we want to finish with this metaphor because it was one of the high experiences I've ever had in Indonesia, was diving with these guys during a dark moon in a remote current-torn sea, clinging onto the reef, and then waiting and waiting and wondering if you're going to run out of air before you see one of them. And then beneath you, a sort of a Steven Spielberg type glowing phenomena as great as the moon coming up, and it rises past you and above you, and it's all resolved into individual pairs of fish, dancing and flirting with each other. And it is compared to the aurora borealis of the deep. And this is how we'd like to finish this film series, because it is indeed the realized metaphor of finding the light in the darkness.
Beautiful. And you're going to go out and... Yeah. And so when is the series... have you been shooting already? What stage is the series in? And are you going to go out and sit there underwater waiting for those fish?
It's at the beginning stage. We
Not completely true, Glenn.
Well, that's true. You've been at it for a while. But shooting would be this year, October,
Amazing.
November, when the aurora borealis of the sea occurs, and then we continue accordingly.
One question I want to get back to sort of the environmental concerns you talk about in the series is that, can you talk about how some of the global changes are impacting marine life? I know it's just a bit of a general statement, but just in the things you've seen, stuff that, and then obviously it's like, what can we do? Is there anything we can do to help change practices to mitigate these shifts?
Well, I think the most we can do as communicators, as filmmakers, is to make people aware of this. It's not necessarily putting your shoulder and pushing the car, as it were. Awareness is the greatest changer of anything in history. And the sea, perhaps we've neglected it a bit. It's like 65% of the oxygen that we breathe comes from the sea. There's 3 in every 5 breaths. 80% of the volcanic eruptions take place underwater. At least we only know about 95% of the species that live in the water, and that's not really counting submicroscopic organisms. And it is something, because it isn't the trees that get burned or cut down, we're rather unaware of what it is. And yet, when our ancestors climbed out of the sea 300 million years ago, they carried with them the same seawater composition that we are carrying in our blood today. The only major change is the red for the hemoglobin carrying oxygen. But otherwise, it's the same as the Mesozoic seas that we staggered out of the ocean with and walked around on land with. Of course, the sea is inside us as much as outside us. Maybe everything is inside us as much as it is outside us. But yes, it deserves a little more recognition. And here we are standing on the brink of these terrifying machines, like in that wonderful film Avatar, in a way you're about to scrape the bottom of the ocean, mindless of what other creatures are being evolved and live there, for manganese balls, which we need apparently to drive our cell phones, our electric cars. I mean, it is
crazy,
a bit of a problem here. We've got to find a balance.
Yeah, well, that's one thing I didn't really understand until I went out, in the fishing boats and I saw them, the gill netting, just miles and miles and miles, just dropped in the bottom, just a wall, just moving, just killing absolutely everything in its path. And that one fishing boat in 18 days can just completely devastate the population. So I think that, what's interesting in your documentary, here's the question that we have, that like some of the challenges, what I love that you guys are doing is it's not a traditional person, it's not a traditional, but there's also a very, I don't want to say metaphysical side, but it's like, it's not just about what you're seeing, it's about what things mean and what's not seen. And I love that. I love that, as an explorer, having the respect for what's out there, those tribes that are uncontacted. It doesn't mean go contact them. It means have respect for that. Can you talk about some of the challenges of sort of approaching the material in this way and what you guys the excitement of doing that?
Thank you so much for asking this question, because that actually represented the reason why we started, first of all, to develop this show around about with Lawrence Blair. When I said that, when I spoke and met Lawrence Blair, something have changed on the way we were and the way we on the way we relate it to nature and everything around us to life, we realized that the more time we were spending with him and kind of following the example and imitating his actions in our everyday life, the more we were self-awakening to a new us. You know, we always speak, all of us, I'm sure, all of us are yoga practitioners here, I'm sure, and we're all spiritual. But then, is that really true? I mean, do we feel that we are awakening and making a change within ourselves and therefore for the others? What we realized with Lawrence is that it's something that happens first within yourself. And if it happens within yourself, that you can give it to someone else. So Jaqueline and I actually did an extensive research about that. And our Bible is developed in this sense. We're taking the audience through Lawrence Blair to see and meet different creatures and get back, and I will never stretch this enough, the sense of wonder that only children have because they feel and they know that they can change things. They only see beauty, and Lawrence Blair only sees beauty. And we want you guys to see beauty. And to see beauty, you need to awake, and you need to feel the beauty. And that's what we did with our episodes, and that's why we end with the Aurora Borealis of the sea.
We call this flipping the narrative. That's what we do, and everything that we do, actually. We try. But no, you know, all of the documentaries out there speak about how much we know about nature. Where in this case, we want to stretch and focus and spotlight and be extremely excited about how wonderfully little we know about nature.
And I think that's such a beautiful, inspiring thing, because you feel like everyone's like, oh, we have Google now, or we have AI, it's answered everything. And you're showing that, you know, maybe the tech companies want to keep you in your phone and in that bubble, but when you go outside, but also by going outside, it really is a journey of going inward and kind of cutting out. I mean, there's so many beautiful things about it. It's weirdly like, it's just going to sound crazy. I don't want to say it's a documentary White Lotus, but I do think that people watch White Lotus because they like going on a trip to another country, and the characters in White Lotus want to force in 7 days some sort of spiritual enlightenment.
Such a great pitch.
And it always, and it, I'm telling you, but I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking, why are we all watching White Lotus? Well, it's why we enjoy watching people self-destruct and be selfish, and you know someone's going to die. But there is that thing of, oh, I'm going to Sicily for a week. I'm going to go to Thailand and watch people on, again, like Coachella, and I'm not, you know, bagging on Coachella, I love Coachella, but the curated experience, that these are the guardrails, that don't go off this, and that what your show is showing is that there is so much more out there that is uncontacted, that there still is wonder, there still is beauty, that not everything in the world has been discovered, and that it is worth fighting for. And I just think it's such a beautiful message. So before we go, I would just love to know if there are any kind of final thoughts you have on the subject in the show, and what you hope people to gain from seeing it.
My final thought is that we keep speaking a lot about it's time of crisis everywhere. You know, I come from a country that is very, very old, Italy, and Rome was burned down 10 times since before Jesus Christ, and so many civilizations disappeared. And still, history proves that only during times of crisis we can be reborn, and we can change things truly, and we can go back to be a community. So this is my big reason for doing this, and I really believe I'm doing the right thing by doing this documentary.
Beautiful, beautiful. Dr. Blair, any final words?
Well, I suppose I'm a little isolated from all the stuff that you're watching, even with my Netflix in Indonesia. But I mean, there aren't that many documentaries that have this sense of wonder in them, other than objectively looking at how diverse animals are, with the possible exceptions of Fantastic Fungi, which I hope you've all seen, which is about this magical world of mycelium. It's only recently been recognized, fungus, as its own kingdom. People didn't know if it belonged in the animal or the vegetable kingdom. Well, it's got its own kingdom, and it's just extraordinary what we're still discovering about it. I suppose the other thing that might reflect some of what we're going to have high octane is my teacher, the octopus, which is a wonderful story about the relationship, about how animals, we don't realize how much consciousness is moving through them as well, and through the vegetable kingdom. We're living in a world we still know nothing about.
Wow. Well, thank you. I would like to thank you. And where can everyone follow the show or what's happening with it or get updates? Is there one spot you could just say quickly?
Well, we'll say the Environmental Media Association. We'll keep Debbie and team informed, and so please go to the EMA websites to find out what we're doing next.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Jaqueline, Illy, Michela Scolari, Glenn Gainor, and of course the great Dr. Lawrence Blair. This was
there we go.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So excited.